of us, including our brother, smart apprentice, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who we demand to be returned to us and his family now. Bring him home!
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Let's talk about this Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, of course, folks know, Maryland father who was deported to the El Salvador prison labor concentration camp. I mean, just real insane facility. He was deported there despite the government specifically having had a do not release to El Salvador order. Like there was a specific order to not send this guy to El Salvador, and they did it anyway. The administration has admitted that it was an administrative error, shouldn't have happened. And now the Supreme Court has said that the Trump administration has to facilitate his being brought back home. And so that is obviously very welcome news. Hopefully he will be let go and let out of custody completely and be able to go back to his job building America. I mean, this is a guy who worked for the sheet metal union, was an apprentice, literally building this country, and the thanks that he got for it was, we're going to send you to a prison labor camp. Just absolutely disgusting stuff coming out about this brother. Allegations without any sort of proof of him being in an MS-13 gang member. There are lots of instances of ICE officials and things like that lying about stuff like this, police officers lying about stuff like that, lying about evidence. But no evidence has even been presented that this guy is a gang member at all. It's just been asserted, and a really, really gross kind of stuff. And I am, very, very confident about the falsity of that allegation because of how strong the building trades unions have come out in support of their brother. This is the president of North America's building trade unions, Sean McGarvey, speaking at their legislative conference last week about this issue. Let's play that.
We need to make our voices heard. We're not red, we're not blue. We're the building trades, the backbone of America. We built a $5 billion, you want to build a $5 billion data center? Want more six-figure careers with healthcare retirement and no college debt? You don't call Elon Musk, you call us. North America's building trades unions. And yeah, that means all of us, including our brother, smart apprentice, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who we demand to be returned to us and his family now. Bring him home.
Very strong messaging from the building trades there. A standing ovation for the calls to bring this brother home. And I just want to underscore for people in the audience that don't know very much about internal union politics, and it's normal that you wouldn't, people have this idea about unions and the union leadership as Democrat toadies, and they do everything that the Democrats want them to do, and they're super partisan and all of this kind of stuff. The building trades are not that way. Like whatever the truth value of that assessment of other union leaders, the building trades are certainly not that. The building trades are not super Democrat, super liberal, sort of assortment of unions. They're very, very much more conservative than the rest of the labor movement. And even at this convention, they had several Republican politicians speaking at this convention. And so, even still, there's not like a full break with the Republican Party, but there is a real, but this is really strong messaging from a group of unions that were even wanting to have a constructive relationship with the Trump administration only a month ago. And we know that because there was a leaked memo that Labor Notes put out that was from the internal NAB2. Like it was a memo to Sean McGarvey from one of their government affairs people about their their work and negotiations and discussions with the Trump administration. And as part of this memo, they had a full page about a list of tactics that NAB2 has leveraged in the first 30 days of the Trump administration to try and establish a productive and working relationship with the Trump administration. Without a request from the White House, they released congratulatory statements on the inauguration of Trump and Vance. They released statements of support for several cabinet nominees, the Department of Labor, the Department of Energy, the Department of the Interior, the Department of State, the Department of Commerce, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department of Transportation. I would not agree with all of those congratulatory statements, but the NAB2 did it. They also released a statement praising the National Energy Dominance Council, okay? They remained silent as hundreds of thousands of future job hours were canceled with the pause of offshore wind leases. They remained silent as funding was paused for a cancer screening program for building trades members funded by the Department of Energy. They remained silent as the Department of Transportation removed preferences for raise grants to be awarded to applicants that utilize project labor agreements, as an NLRB member was fired along with the general counsel as DOGE went into the Department of Labor. They noted specifically that NAB2 declined to join the AFL's lawsuit when asked. They remained silent as the federal government attorneys announced agreement with 90-day pause to review new prevailing wage rules and about the PLA executive order exemption for Department of Defense projects. They also have been responsive to White House requests for information. They have repeatedly indicated to U.S. Senate and House members about our commitments to work with the Trump administration, and they turned away countless quote requests from reporters to criticize President Trump or his actions. Okay, so this is not right. This is a group of unions that are desperate to be given an excuse to be able to work with Republicans. This is a group of unions that would love nothing more than to be able to go to their conservative members and say, look at how close we are with the Trump administration. This is a group of unions that would love nothing more than to be openly pro-Republican, frankly, right? They just need an excuse to do that, and the Trump administration is refusing to do that. The Trump administration and Republicans generally just cannot seem to make themselves give unions even a little bit. Even the unions that want to work with them, they just can't seem to bring themselves to give them a little bit, when that's all that the unions are asking for, is a little bit. Right? And so this really strong messaging on the immigration issue, which is a very controversial sort of thing, is out of character for the building trades unions, right?
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
So I'm very confident that if they had even a small amount of inclination that this guy was an MS-13 member, they would not be doing this, right? And they would be, and this guy is a smart apprentice. This guy has, the local union officials with the sheet metal union, the local officials with the local building trades council, all of these people who have to work with this guy, who have worked with this guy day in and day out. They would have some sort of inclination if this guy is a gang member. And they would have communicated that to their leadership if that was the case, right? And so I'm very, very confident because of that all of these allegations are just nonsense. So that's very strong messaging from the building trades unions, and excited to hear that. There's another immigration story, again, where unions are coming out very strongly against the deportation sort of stuff. There's a good article in Labor Notes. Kentucky unions stand up to halt deportation of 200 workers. And that is in Kentucky at the GE Appliances manufacturing plant in Louisville. There are 5,700 workers there, and 200 of them have been targeted for deportation. The immigrant workers from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela are the ones that have been targeted. They have had some hostility from some co-workers, but an outpouring of support from their union and the local labor movement. They are part of the Communication Workers Industrial Division, IUE CWA, Local 83761. Labor Notes says that they are in the U.S. on, quote, humanitarian parole, a program that the government until now has used to provide visas to people fleeing war or political instability in certain countries.
Right. Can I just say for a second, like, the cruel irony of the United States engaging in really harsh sanctions regimes on countries like these, participating in the political instability of those countries, and, you know, encouraging people to oppose the governments of those countries at various times. And so some of them come here looking for that better life. And now this very same country that had, you know, have been doing all of these things to contribute to their arrival here is now turning its back on them. And yeah, so I think that is an interesting detail to this case in particular, that that's the reason they were here, right? They came from those particular countries who have had political instability and in some cases have been opponents of the United States.
Right. Just some more about those workers. They began arriving in 1995 after the Cuban and U.S. governments signed an accord establishing a lottery to allow 20,000 Cubans per year into the country. Those who didn't have family to receive them in Miami went to smaller cities like Louisville. The Cuban immigrants have transformed Louisville from the dining and entertainment scenes to the makeup of its workforce, flocking to jobs at UPS, Amazon, Ford, and GE. The workforce at this plant specifically has grown from a little over 1,000 workers before 2017 to nearly 6,000 today. The surge came after the Chinese company Haier, the world's largest home appliance manufacturer, bought appliance part from GE in 2016 for $5.4 billion. Immigrant workers from, and this is fascinating about this this appliance park here. Kentucky is a right-to-work state, Labor Note says, but 97% of workers at the plant are dues-paying union members.
Wow.
Local 83761 president Dino Driscoll said they speak more than 20 different languages, came to the country legally, and contribute to their local communities. I mean, that is amazing. That is really, really, really cool stuff there. And so another thing that they mention in this article somewhere, I'm trying to look for it, is that there are some people in the plant who are confused about what the humanitarian parole program is, and they think it's some sort of disciplinary thing, but it's not. It's just it's like there's no, you know, they've not been accused of violating any law in their home country or in this country. It's just the term that the U.S. uses for their their visa program. And so, the union says there's a lot of misinformation, confusion, and division among workers, especially around the phrase humanitarian parole, which some people incorrectly interpret to imply that workers with this legal status have criminal records. Yeon, a union member, says that despite his years in the country, he's still baffled by the ignorance of the average American.
You and me both, brother.
The Kentucky State AFL-CIO said these are human beings with families and kids who have built lives here, and they deserve dignity, compassion, and due process. The Labor Federation also highlighted that the way this information was delivered through mail notices with little to no direct assistance has left families in distress with no clear next steps. Many of the targeted workers don't speak English, which has worsened the confusion and fear. And so, again, recommend reading this article from Labor Notes. It's another good one. The title of the article is Kentucky Unions Stand Up to Halt Deportation of 200 Workers. The author is Luis Feliz Leon. Good guy, good writer, good reporter. It's a good article. So check it out.
Absolutely. I mean, an injury to one is an injury to all. So shout out to those brothers and sisters in Kentucky who are rallying behind their union siblings and trying to do the right thing. Just a real disgrace, and I think we just have to be we just have to be open and honest about how dehumanizing all of this really is. You know, snatching people away from their families and shipping them off to mysterious locations behind bars. It's really disturbing. It's, you know, it really is an affront to human rights. And I think it's up to all of us to be engaged in this fight. And I really appreciate IUECWA, that local there. Clearly, for them to have 97% membership and a right-to-work environment, they already appreciate the value of organizing, the importance of building community and building belonging among such a diverse workforce.
Right.
So credit to them for the work they've been doing and are continuing to do. And, you know, shout out to the rest of the folks up in Kentucky. We love Kentucky. We are on the air in Kentucky, and we really appreciate those union siblings up there who are fighting the good fight.
And one more thing I want to say on the immigration stuff. This is back to Kilmar. You know, the government's position, the Department of Justice's position has been that, well, he's already out of our hands. So, you know, whoopsie, sorry, we can't bring him back. And
that's a person's life.
Well, that's a person's life, yes, and it's worth stopping on that. It's worth opposing on that basis. But also, he did not have due process before he was whisked away to this El Salvador prison camp. And so there is nothing at all within the government's logic to stop them from spiriting me or you away to this El Salvador prison camp and then saying, well, he's already there, you know, sorry, it was a clerical error, you know, my bad, we won't do it again, but what's done is done and we can't bring him back. Like, there is literally nothing in their arguments that stops them from doing that. Maybe, you know, and the Supreme Court has said you got to bring him home. And Trump has also said, okay, we'll do that. If the Supreme Court says to do it, then we'll do it. It hasn't happened yet, but there is nothing at all within the positions of the Department of Justice that stops them from taking American citizens and spiriting them away to this prison labor camp for your ideas. I mean, the ICE, I don't know if you saw this, Adam. ICE literally put out a tweet last week talking about how it's their job to stop a bunch of illegal things from entering the country. And I kid you not, yes, here it is. Look at this. ICE enforces 400 plus federal laws to ensure public safety and national security. Our job is to ensure people, money, products, and intellectual property do not enter the U.S. illegally. And then this meme says, if it crosses the U.S. border illegally, it's our job to stop it. People, money, products, and intellectual oh, no, this is different. It used to say ideas.
Wow.
It said ideas before it said intellectual property. And so, you know, and also with Mahmoud Khalil's thing, the Department of State, they are not alleging that he broke any laws. They're not alleging that at all. They're saying his beliefs and associations run counter to the foreign policy goals of the United States. That is scary.
It is very scary. I mean, we are all raised to believe that this is the freest country on the earth, that freedom is innate. It's something that is natural. Like, we are all born with this freedom. And it's very disturbing to see the authoritarianism coming from our government. And it's also disturbing when you see fellow workers who are cheering it on or buying into it. I think it's a lot less than maybe we would want to believe. I'm hopeful that it's not as many as you might think. I think it's a vocal minority. But, you know, it is very, very disturbing to see that just decline in respect for basic human rights, human dignity, that folks can have ideas and associations that you don't like. That is not an excuse to violate their human rights.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line.
It's scary.
It is very, very scary. And I want to see all these folks return to their families. I really do.
Yeah.
It's the least that could happen. But it is important that labor is speaking up, and I'm glad more and more folks in the organized labor movement are speaking up. We've got to work with all of our allies and potential partners and coalitions and find ways to build that people power to push back on this, because it's too many folks are suffering already. And to your point, they're opening the door for so much more abuse, so much more violation of our rights. It is a very, very dark time, and I think it's going to be important that we do show up for one another and have each other's back, especially when these attacks happen. When they come for one of us, they come for all of us, and I think it's important that that's how we respond. We can't just let things slide. We can't let, we can't, be confused about who some of the real problems are in this country. People like these brothers and sisters who are being taken away from their families, they are not the harm that we're experiencing in this country. They are not the cause of multiple layers of crisis that we're dealing with, right? They're not the root evils of what's happening in this country. And so, it's really important that we all stand up and show up for each other.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.